Hello and welcome to the bonsai garden. I have here with me a Trident Maple tree which I bought from All Things Bonsai just before Christmas. And I bought this specific tree because I was looking for a project tree, something that I could put my own stamp on. And this tree I saw, and what I actually see here is two separate trees. So what I'm planning to do is to air layer this tree to get myself two separate trees, and just at this point in here I plan to take an air layer at that point there, and I'll have a small squat tree down below, and I intend to develop an umbrella style canopy on that, and possibly, depending on what the roots look like on this tree, I may then put that small tree over a rock. I'll then also have this upper portion of the tree as a separate tree in its own right. So in case you're not familiar with it, air layering is a horticultural technique used to propagate plants, especially trees and shrubs, by inducing the growth of roots on a stem or branch that's still attached to the parent plant. The technique involves removing a section of bark and encouraging the plant to form new roots at the exposed area. Here's how air layering works. A small section of bark is removed from the stem of a plant. The exposed area is then treated with a rooting hormone to stimulate root growth, and a moist medium such as sphagnum moss is wrapped around the exposed area and covered with plastic wrap to create a humid environment. The moss is kept moist and the plastic wrap is sealed to prevent moisture loss. Over time, the plant will produce new roots at the exposed area, allowing it to grow into a new individual plant. The key to air layering is to create a favourable environment for root growth. By removing a section of the bark and treating it with a rooting hormone, the plant is encouraged to produce new roots at the exposed site. The moist medium and the plastic wrap help to create a humid environment which further encourages root growth. Once the new roots are formed, the air layer can be cut from the parent plant and potted up or transplanted into the ground. Air layering is a useful technique for propagating trees that are difficult to propagate by other means. Before I get started and show you the process of air layering this tree, I just need you to hit the like button, share the love, and if you're interested in learning how I produce and grow my bonsai trees, then subscribe to be notified of future videos. The first step in the air layering process is to ring bark the tree. That is to take a point on the trunk where you expect to separate the two trees, and in this case it's going to be here. I'm going to have a small tree in the lower half of the bonsai, which will have branches coming out of the side and develop an umbrella style canopy. And then I will have a tree with a little bit of taper in the top, which will be a separate tree. I'm going to separate the trees at this point. So what I need to do is, with a sharp knife, go around the tree and cut away a ring of bark. It's important to make sure that the cut is tidy. So you can see I'm making two cuts that encircle the whole of the trunk, and those are perhaps a centimetre and a half apart. And then once I've made those cuts, I'm going to remove the bark from the trunk between those two lines. What I'm then hoping is that roots will develop out of the bottom of where the top cut is. So now I've been round, and what I need to do is remove the bark between those two sections. And you can see in here the green cambium layer, and it's from there that the roots will develop. Just making sure I take away any remaining cambium layer. which might act as a bridge between the two sections. What I don't want is for this to callus over and regrow over that section. Trident maples are quite a vigorous grower in the world of bonsai trees and maple trees. And I have had some success with taking air layers in the bonsai garden here before with trident maples. And I expect that once I put the moss on there, that I will be able to get roots to develop fairly quickly, and that before autumn I will be able to separate the top part of the tree from the bottom and have two separate trees rather than one. I'm now in mid-May, which I believe is about the correct time to start an air layer. The next step is to apply a rooting hormone powder. I'm just applying dusting of rooting hormone powder to the top edge of where I've made my cut, because that's where the roots will form, and the rooting hormone powder will just help encourage root growth at that point. The next step is to take some sphagnum moss, and I'm just chopping this up a little bit more finely, and I'll apply this around the area where I've done the ring bark, and this provides a nice damp, moist environment for roots to grow. I've just added some water to that to make sure it's nice and moist. My next step is to take some plastic and apply that around the tree, and that will just hold the sphagnum moss in place. And this is the trickiest part of the process. So I'm going to now use some wire to secure that onto the tree. And it's tricky because I want to try and apply that towards the bottom of where I've made my cut. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to make a waterproof holder for my sphagnum moss, and that will hold that on the tree whilst the roots are developing. So I've now got a plastic funnel into which I can place my sphagnum moss. So I'm just pushing that into the bottom of where the bag is attached to the tree, and all the way around the trunk. And this is the point where you might wish you had 3 arms. So that's all in there. So now what I want to do is close the bag up around that, making sure that the sphagnum moss is all around the area where we've taken the bark off the tree. Pull that tight around there. And I've specifically chosen a see-through bag, which will let me see. I've specifically chosen a see-through plastic bag, which will let me see when the roots have formed on there. And what I will do is to protect that from damage from direct light, I'll cover that with aluminium foil, and just applying a wire to the top of this bag now to hold that together and try and form a moist and waterproof environment. Try and keep the moisture within the bag, as that will encourage the root growth. I'm going to trim off some of the excess on the plastic bag. And there we have it. We've got a bag of sphagnum moss attached to the trunk around the point where we've ring barked it, and that's the point at which we hope to encourage root growth. And I'm now just going to cover that over with aluminium foil. Since roots tend to grow in darkness, the direct light is not going to be a great help to those, and so I'm just covering that up. The fact that it's aluminium foil means that I can mould it around the plastic bag, but it also means that I can easily remove that in a couple of months' time to check how the air layering is getting on. And there we have it. Hopefully in about 2 or 3 months' time, roots will have started developing and will be visible in the sphagnum moss. And come September, October time, I'll be able to separate the top part from the bottom, plant the top part up into some bonsai soil, and I will have 2 trees rather than 1. Here is the tree with the air layer applied. I just need to keep an eye on that for the next several months. Perhaps in about 2 or 3 months' time I'll remove the foil and just see if I can see any evidence of roots developing. And it's likely to be late September when I look to remove that, provided there's sufficient roots. I hope you found that useful or interesting. If so, hit the like button and subscribe to be notified of future videos. Thanks for watching.